In this episode, we explore the history, mystery, and unanswered questions surrounding the town that was left behind. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to wake up one morning and discover that your hometown had been abandoned? Not because of war, not because of a natural disaster, but because something invisible was slowly growing beneath your feet. A danger that nobody fully understood. A danger that would eventually force thousands of people to leave everything behind. Tonight, we're traveling to a small town hidden in the hills of Pennsylvania. A town called Centralia. And this is the story of how an ordinary American community became one of the most famous ghost towns in the world.
At first glance, Centralia looked like countless other mining towns scattered across the northeastern United States. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, coal was king. The region was rich with anthracite coal, one of the most valuable forms of coal in the country. Jobs were plentiful. Families settled in the area. Businesses opened. Churches were built. Schools were filled with children. For decades, Centralia was a thriving community. By the 1960s, more than 1,000 people called the town home. Neighbors knew one another. Local stores served generations of families. Life was far from perfect, but it was stable. Nobody could have imagined that the town's greatest threat would come from beneath the ground itself.
The event that changed everything appeared surprisingly ordinary. In May of 1962, town officials wanted to clean up a local landfill located inside an abandoned strip mine pit. Garbage had accumulated there for years. The cleanup was intended to prepare the area for a community celebration. Workers used a common method at the time. They set fire to the trash. The expectation was simple. The fire would burn away the waste and then extinguish itself. Instead, something unexpected happened. Beneath the landfill were old mining tunnels. Many of those tunnels contained exposed coal deposits. At some point during the cleanup, the fire found its way into those underground passages. Once it reached the coal seams, the situation changed dramatically. Coal can burn for astonishingly long periods under the right conditions. And deep underground, hidden from view, the fire began to spread. At first, nobody realized how serious the problem had become.
After all, there were no giant flames erupting from the streets. There were no dramatic explosions. Life continued as normal. People went to work. Children attended school. Businesses stayed open. Yet below the town, a slow-moving disaster was already underway. Officials attempted several methods to stop the fire. Engineers explored different containment strategies. Excavation projects were proposed. Experts believed the blaze could still be controlled. But every solution came with a problem. The fire was underground. The mining network was enormous, and nobody knew exactly how far the flames had already traveled. Years passed. The fire continued.
Residents began noticing strange signs. Some reported unusual smells. Others noticed areas of warm ground. Steam occasionally rose from cracks in certain locations. At first, these incidents seemed isolated, easy to ignore, easy to explain away. But they kept happening, and little by little, concerns started to grow. What made the situation particularly frightening was the uncertainty. Nobody could simply look underground and see what was happening. The danger remained hidden, invisible, silent. For many residents, the fire felt more like a rumor than a real threat. After all, people had been living above old mines for generations. Why should this situation be any different?
But beneath the streets of Centralia, the fire was continuing its slow journey through the coal seams. Every day, it moved a little farther. Every year, it became more difficult to stop. And before long, the town would begin experiencing events that nobody could ignore. Events that would transform Centralia forever. In Part 2, we'll examine the terrifying warning signs that convinced many residents something was terribly wrong, and the shocking incident involving a young boy that brought international attention to the town.
When people think about disasters, they often imagine dramatic moments. A massive explosion, a towering wave, a sudden collapse. But the most frightening disasters are sometimes the ones that happen slowly. So slowly that people don't realize they're in danger until it's too late. That was exactly what was happening in Centralia. As the underground fire continued spreading through the abandoned mine tunnels, the signs became increasingly difficult to ignore. Residents began noticing strange patches of ground that felt unusually warm. Steam occasionally drifted from cracks in roads and hillsides. During cold winter mornings, some areas looked almost unnatural. Snow would cover the surrounding landscape, yet certain sections of ground remained completely bare. The heat rising from below was melting the snow before it could settle.
At first, these strange occurrences were little more than local curiosities. Something to talk about over dinner. Something to mention to neighbors. But beneath the surface, a far more dangerous problem was developing. As coal burns underground, it produces a variety of gases. Among them is carbon monoxide, an odorless, invisible gas that can be deadly. Measurements taken in some areas began showing alarming levels. Officials started realizing that this wasn't merely a nuisance. It was becoming a serious public safety issue. Yet despite the warnings, many residents remained skeptical. This was their home. Their families had lived here for generations. The idea of abandoning the town seemed unthinkable. After all, people had spent decades living above the mines. What made this situation different? Then came the incident that would change everything. An incident that is still discussed whenever the story of Centralia is told. It happened in 1981. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was playing in his grandmother's yard. It was an ordinary day. Nothing seemed unusual. Then, suddenly, the ground beneath him opened. Without warning, a sinkhole appeared. The boy fell into the opening. Below him was a deep cavity connected to the underground mine network. Hot gases were rising from beneath the earth. Witnesses later reported seeing steam pouring from the hole. Fortunately, Todd managed to grab onto a tree root. His cousin quickly pulled him to safety. The entire incident lasted only moments. But those moments changed the future of Centralia forever. If the sinkhole had opened a few feet away, if nobody had been nearby, the outcome could have been tragic. The event attracted national attention. Suddenly, the underground fire was no longer a local problem. It had become a story that people across the country were following. Government officials began taking a closer look. Engineers conducted additional studies. Experts reached a troubling conclusion. The fire was not going away. In fact, it was expected to continue burning for decades. Possibly even centuries. The cost of extinguishing it completely had become astronomical. Some estimates suggested that stopping the fire would require excavating enormous sections of land. The price tag was simply too high, and there was no guarantee of success. Officials faced a difficult choice: continue fighting a battle they might never win, or relocate the residents. Eventually, the government chose the second option. In the years that followed, relocation programs were introduced. Homeowners received offers to leave. Many accepted. Some did so reluctantly. Others resisted. For families who had spent their entire lives in Centralia, leaving meant more than moving houses. It meant abandoning memories, friendships, history, entire chapters of their lives.
Businesses closed. Schools shut down. Neighborhoods that had once echoed with children's voices became silent. Entire streets emptied. As the population declined, the town began transforming into something eerie, something that felt frozen in time. Photographs from the period show rows of empty houses waiting to be demolished. Vacant lots where families once gathered. Roads leading nowhere. The process wasn't immediate. It took years. But the result was unmistakable. Centralia was dying, and everyone knew it. Yet perhaps the strangest part of the story wasn't that people were leaving. It was that some refused to go. Even as their neighbors packed their belongings. Even as homes disappeared. Even as the government declared the area unsafe.
A small group of residents chose to stay. For them, Centralia was still home. The underground fire had not changed that. No amount of money could replace the place where they had built their lives. As the years passed, the town became increasingly empty. Buildings vanished. Roads deteriorated. Nature slowly reclaimed the landscape. But the fire beneath the ground continued its relentless journey. Invisible, silent, unstoppable. And while many believed the story was coming to an end, Centralia was about to become something even stranger. A place that attracted explorers, photographers, conspiracy theorists, and curiosity seekers from around the world. A town that refused to disappear completely. And a mystery that still raises questions to this day.
Today, if you travel to the hills of eastern Pennsylvania looking for Centralia, you might be surprised by what you find. Or, perhaps more accurately, what you don't find. The town that once housed more than 1,000 residents has almost completely disappeared. Many of the homes are gone. Most of the businesses are gone. Entire neighborhoods have vanished. In some places, all that remains are empty fields where streets and houses once stood. To a visitor, it can feel less like a town and more like the memory of one. And yet, despite everything that has happened, Centralia is not entirely abandoned. A small number of residents have continued living there over the years. For them, this place is more than a disaster zone. It is home. The place where they grew up. The place where their memories live. Their decision has fascinated outsiders for decades. Why stay when nearly everyone else has left? The answer is complicated. For some, it was a matter of attachment. For others, it was about principle. They believed they should not be forced out of their homes. And for many, no amount of money could replace a lifetime of memories. But regardless of where people stand on that debate, one fact remains unchanged. The fire is still burning. more than 60 years after it first ignited. Think about that for a moment. Entire generations have been born and grown old since the fire began. Presidents have come and gone. Technology has transformed the world. And beneath Centralia, the coal continues to burn.
Experts estimate that the fire stretches through miles of underground coal seams. The exact size is difficult to determine. The underground mine network is complex. Conditions constantly change. And because much of the activity occurs deep below the surface, obtaining precise measurements is challenging. Some estimates suggest the fire could continue burning for another century. Others believe it may last several centuries. A few projections have even suggested longer timelines. No one knows for certain. That uncertainty is part of what makes Centralia so fascinating. The disaster isn't over.
It hasn't reached a clear ending. It exists in a strange state between past and present, a catastrophe that continues unfolding year after year. Naturally, a story this unusual has inspired countless theories. Some are reasonable. Others venture deep into speculation. One common theory claims that officials underestimated the fire from the beginning. According to this view, early intervention might have prevented the disaster entirely. If stronger action had been taken in the 1960s, perhaps Centralia could have been saved. Others argue that the situation was far more complicated. The underground mining network was enormous.
The fire spread quickly, and even modern technology might have struggled to stop it completely. Then there are the conspiracy theories. Some claim the town was abandoned for reasons unrelated to the fire. Others suggest government agencies concealed information from the public. Over the years, these theories have spread across books, documentaries, forums, and social media. Yet, despite decades of speculation, there is little evidence supporting the more extraordinary claims. In reality, the truth may be both simpler and more unsettling. A routine landfill cleanup accidentally ignited a fire. The fire reached underground coal deposits. And once it began spreading through the mines, it became a problem too large and expensive to solve. No secret experiments, no hidden organizations. Just a chain of decisions and circumstances that spiraled beyond anyone's control. Perhaps that's what makes the story so powerful. There was no villain, no monster, no dramatic final twist.
Instead, Centralia reminds us of something far more uncomfortable. Sometimes disasters don't arrive with a single catastrophic moment. Sometimes they begin with ordinary choices. Choices that seem harmless at the time. Choices whose consequences may not be understood until years later. Today, visitors who explore the area often describe a strange atmosphere. Not necessarily frightening, not necessarily haunted, just unsettling. There is something eerie about standing in a place where an entire community once lived. A place where children played, where families gathered, where birthdays were celebrated, where ordinary lives unfolded day after day. And then imagining all of it slowly disappearing. Not overnight, not in a single disaster, but gradually, year after year, until almost nothing remained. The story of Centralia is often called the story of a ghost town, but perhaps that description misses something important.
Ghost towns are usually places where history ended. Centralia is different. Its story is still being written. The fire is still burning. The questions remain. And the town continues to capture the imagination of people around the world. More than 6 decades later, Centralia stands as a reminder that some mysteries are not about what happened. They're about what is still happening. And somewhere beneath the quiet hills of Pennsylvania, the fire continues to burn.
Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of America's strangest abandoned places. Now I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you had lived in Centralia, would you have stayed and fought to keep your home? Or would you have left long before the danger grew worse? Let me know your answer in the comments below. And if you enjoy mysteries, unexplained events, abandoned places, and strange true stories from around the world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this story. It helps the channel grow and allows me to bring you more fascinating mysteries every week. Until next time, stay curious.